Thank you both for sitting down today. We wanted to talk about the 5 reasons why raising a family in Topeka is so darn great. We broke it down to 5 reasons because otherwise we could sit here all day and talk. But we wanted to hit the ones that were most distinct to us and most poignant. So the first one on that list is affordability. Topeka just being so darn affordable for raising a family and how that affects wealth building, family growth, and everything that's all of us want to do. So I want to get an opinion from either of you. Do you think Topeka is affordable, and how does that affect your lives?
Well, I think universally people oftentimes want the majority of the same things. They want to own a home, they want to raise a family, or at least have the ability to pursue some of their other dreams. And so basically it's the American dream. And I think the American dream is alive and well in Topeka, Kansas.
Yeah.
It's alive and well a lot of places, but especially here from the affordability aspect. I'm sure you remember me telling you this, but Christine and I lived in Italy for a year, and we loved it. We loved the Italian countryside. We went to school there. It was part of our MBA program. And so, being a younger married couple living in Italy was beautiful. And it's not just the Italian countryside. The people were amazing. I love the Italian people. Got to know a lot of younger people at the time, and I say younger, 20s and 30s. It's amazing how different some aspects of it were. They would really put off marriage and family, and home ownership seemed very elusive to them. So, I just remember thinking about how blessed we are in America to have some of these opportunities.
Yeah.
My wife and I, we got married at 22. I think we were 30, 31 when we were living there. And people thought we were very young to be married.
Yeah.
So when I look at that as the American dream as a whole, and specifically Topeka, Kansas, you hear a lot of people today, a lot of younger people, really kind of in some angst and some turmoil because they think that's not going to be available for them. Mm-hmm. They're looking at some of the larger cities and the affordability issues. They look at inflation, and they just think that they're never going to be able to own that house or start that family, or they're going to be able to so much later. And you hear talk about how good the boomers had it. And by the way, I'm not a boomer, I'm Gen X, but I don't, not everybody that's older than 30 is a boomer. So you hear a lot of stuff about that. And I just want to tell you, in Topeka, Kansas, Shawnee County, just Northeast Kansas in general, American dream's alive and well. It's much more affordable. We also lived in Phoenix, Arizona. Definitely America. It's great. We lived in Scottsdale for a while and Phoenix, and we loved it there too. We were there for about 4 years. Beautiful place. We couldn't afford the type of home and some of the education we have for our kids and some other things that we can here. And I loved Arizona. It was great. But the kind of home that we have here, we have a 4,100 square foot home, and with an in-ground pool, 4.5 acres. And I mean, that would be astronomically expensive there. We send our kids to a private school here, and that would just not be the same opportunity.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when it comes to affordability, I'm very thankful for Northeast Kansas, Topeka, specifically Shawnee County area. So, I mean, that's kind of what I think of when I think of that American dream, affordability, because, I'm all about family. And it's just that's the opportunity.
Yeah, I never would have thought growing up in Kansas City that I was going to own a home as early as I did in life. So I agree with that. But
And that's only an hour from here.
I know, it's only an hour from here. But like my best friend, they just sold their house, 2-bed, 1-bath, maybe on a 1/4 acre. I mean, super cute house, but in Kansas City, close to the Legends, and it sold for like $185,000, $190,000. And we bought our house. Now, granted, that was in 2014, but I mean, we paid $130,000 for a 5-bed, 3-bath in-ground pool house. I mean, yes, inflation has happened. Things have changed, but still, like the home that I have now, I could not afford that home in Kansas City. It's just so, or I wouldn't want to pay what I would need to, I guess.
I was going to say, you're an agent. I mean, if you just took your home with this pool and transplanted it to a decent part of Kansas City, what do you think you'd pay for it right now?
My house?
Yeah.
300. I mean, really 300.
Legitimately, yeah.
Yeah. So
I think you'd be more than that, quite frankly.
You think?
Yeah,
well, I think it depends on where.
Depending on what county, what part of Kansas City. But yeah, I mean, 300 would be probably entry level for that.
Yeah.
What do you think her home would be worth now, Jacob? We've both been to her house. What do you think? In Topeka.
In our market,
In
in
our
Topeka?
market. Because she bought it before. We're hearing 130, and a lot of people might think, oh, that's just...
I bet you somewhere between 230, 250. I have to
Yeah,
see the inside of
I think you're right. I think low to mid twos.
Yeah.
So, which is still...
Gained some fantastic equity, and that's awesome.
Crazy to me.
Yeah.
Speaking of, like, I haven't dealt with anybody abroad, but last year I moved out someone from California. I helped someone move out from Washington. And right now I have 3 different people from
That's
Florida.
pretty much a
moving
foreign
up.
country.
But they are looking at what they can sell their properties for out there and buy out here. And every single one of them are just blown. Like right now, I'm currently working with one from Florida, and they're selling their trailer down there. And what he described is not a great part of town. And he's going to sell that trailer, and they're going to have enough money to buy a full house up here. So
that's
what
amazing.
you can.
So you're talking selling personal property, which is what a trailer, a mobile home is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And buying real estate,
which comes with
here.
lot rent and everything else if you don't actually own the lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean,
amazing.
it's crazy what you can actually buy in Topeka when you compare, especially to coastal cities. I don't care if you're going anywhere on the Gulf, or if you're going out to like New York, or if you're going to Florida, California, Washington. Even those folks that are further inland, like the gal I moved out from Washington last year, she is Vancouver, which isn't even close to the ocean, and she was able to sell her house out there and buy something much bigger out here for cash.
Yeah.
And she was thrilled.
Amazing.
So, with that said too, I just feel like it'd be remiss not to mention some of the natural disasters that can happen. I mean, we're no stranger to it in the Midwest. We have tornadoes.
Yeah.
I would trade. I would keep the tornado aspect compared to some of the stuff that they're facing in other parts.
Yeah.
And my heart really goes out to specifically the people with the LA fires, and then also.
It's horrible.
Oh yeah, and then
it's
everything
so
that
sad.
happened in the Carolinas as well. I mean, it's just that's absolutely horrible. We our heart goes out and praying for you all. I just can't imagine what LA is going to look like after this.
Yeah.
So
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Terrible situation. I mean, we have been praying for you all. When I look at that, Florida also has some pretty significant issues with insurance and with hurricanes and some other stuff. So
a lot of people can't get insurance.
Yeah.
Or it's tripled.
On the flip side of that,
rates have gone up insurance here too, but just not to the same.
Well,
not to the same level.
What affects insurance policy down there affects up here too. Like there's a massive carrier that we all know that doesn't want to replace a single roof in Kansas because they're dealing with claims from hurricanes in the past down on the Gulf.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's true.
It all works together. I had a gentleman reach out over the weekend who came in through our website, and he was in Lawrence at the time. We were going to meet Sunday. He decided he was going to live in Kansas because it's so darn cheap. He was blown away. But he called me on Sunday, said, never mind, I'm going to cancel. I'm going to up in Arkansas or something. It's just too cold up here. So we have our own things too, weather-wise.
I think this is kind of an easy transition to one of the other things that I think makes Topeka such a great place to raise a family. So we're talking about the natural disasters. We're talking about, you were kind of talking about how when things hit like the coastal cities, it's more of like a tidal wave. And here there's like the stability.
We're insulated.
In the Midwest.
Yeah.
And not just about natural disasters, but Jacob, talk a little bit more about what you were.
Yeah, I mean, our markets, coastal cities especially, they see if you look at a graph, kind of looks like tidal waves. Markets or even other countries, other things can affect pricing on astronomical degrees. And it seems like the further inland you go to Kansas, we're getting ripple effects. So we don't ever see this on a graph, we just see some ripples, but we're always on a steady stream up. Matter of fact, when Patrick sold me my home 10 years ago, I think it was 10 years ago.
Don't test me.
I remember him telling me, even at that time, I remember the conversation, him going, home is a great buy here because you're going to build equity and we don't see turmoil in the market like everything else. I remember that whole conversation.
That was pretty fresh for me because I was just coming out of
10 years, that has proven to be true.
Yeah, you were.
And we just got through a pandemic, and I get to see what housing and cost of fuel and groceries and everything else is done across the country, and that still proves to be true. We get ripple effects where a lot of the other country gets whole waves.
Yeah, and that was pretty fresh for me when I gave you that advice because I was just kind of coming out of the whole, when we lived in Phoenix, Scottsdale, we were there through what they call the Great Recession now. We didn't have a name for it back then. We were like, oh no, we're all going to die. That was our feeling. So, but here I come back to Kansas during that time. We moved back here after we had our first child. And it's not like nothing happened, but it's almost like nothing happened.
I was going to say, you have mentioned that quite a few times, that like you, just everything you went through in Scottsdale.
The sky was falling there.
Granted, I was 6 years out of high school / college at that point. I didn't feel anything.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that people didn't in the Midwest. I'm sure they did. I wasn't a homeowner at that particular time.
My parents didn't feel it.
But I did not. I mean, I knew, obviously I watch the news and I listen to, I do my research. I knew things were happening. We did not see that the way the rest of the U.S. did.
We don't get near as much culture shock here, nor do we get near as much market shock. Again, we get ripple effects. Like even in Kansas, when we get a massive hailstorm or a tornado nearby somewhere, it's still not like an effect of a hurricane down south or a wildfire out west, where surrounding counties and cities and everything are super affected. We all just kind of.
Did you say a wildfire?
Wildfire.
Wildfire. Okay. Wildfire.
So Wild West is coming
insulated,
out.
I think, is the best word for it. Is Topeka is pretty insulated from massive market fluctuations. That's pretty fair.
Yeah.
Which
I agree.
takes us to the next one, because I want to get Becky's opinion on this more.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And that is education. Because, Patrick, your kid's private school, mine homeschool.
Its own deal.
So of this group, Becky's the only one that's actually in the public school system. So much so that her husband works in the public school system.
Yep.
So I want to get your
Husband's a
thoughts
teacher.
on.
Well, unlike that though, unlike you, I did go to public school, just so you know. So
I grew up a homeschooler and then chose to homeschool my kids. So I'm just straight up weird. So I don't know what it's like. I'm not one of you guys.
We'll save the jokes for later.
Anyways, you came from Kansas City, so you didn't grow up in Topeka. So you do have a comparison of school systems out there versus school systems here.
Yeah, I think my husband's a teacher. I don't think he's a teacher. He is a teacher. So I definitely see a different side of it than I did before. There's a lot of really great teachers. There's a lot of really great people in, the school board, superintendents. I'm not saying that there's not bad people spread throughout. That's going to be anywhere you go. I just feel like Topeka has such a great option of public schools. I mean, different and private schools. I mean, there's just so many options, and specifically like Washburn Rural, I know in the last year they opened up to where if you want to go to Washburn Rural but you're not in district, you can actually apply. I believe the other schools are the same way. So as long as there's room, you can find the right fit for your kids, what works for them. But even like Topeka High, that's like an inner city school, like they have a $1 million+ building. I mean, you drive up on that thing and you would have no clue that it's a school. It is absolutely stunning. And actually my husband did, he has his administration degree, and when he was going through schooling, he had to, or got to, shadow a principal, and he shadowed the principal at Topeka High.
Oh, cool.
And he said it was one of the best experiences he ever had. Same thing, Highland Park. That's one of the inner city schools, and my husband would not give up any day that he spent at that school. When he was a para at that point, he kind of worked all these different, but he's like, the kids were fantastic, the teachers were great. Like anywhere he turned, there were people supporting each other. Again, there's bad apples anywhere you go, but I feel like in general in Topeka, anywhere you go, you're going to be fine. So that's my personal opinion.
Now, Patrick, again, your kids are in private school, which I'd like to get your thoughts on that, but also you have a very large clientele basis from over the years of so many sales, and a large portion of those have kids in school. So, I mean, you get to see inner workings of schools just through the eyes of your clients. What are your thoughts?
Well, before I answer that, I just have to say, talk about her husband, Alex, as just a teacher. It seems kind of
just a teacher.
Yeah, because he's like he's a grill master, a brewmaster.
I think he's a dean too, isn't he?
He just.
No, his name's Alex. It's not Dean.
Got the dean of students position for the middle school for next year. So this year, according to my daughter, he's still a teacher, but then next year he'll be a dean of students.
It's funny to say Alex just anything. As soon as you add just, it's just like
So he's the one that makes us look bad because he makes like treats for your Bible studies and things like that. Right?
He does.
He's the cook. So.
He's the cook. Yeah. They don't ask Becky to bring anything. They ask Alex. That's for sure.
Well, in your question again was basically
Private
what's my
schools, and then your
Yeah.
thoughts on public schools through the eyes of all the clientele you've had over the years.
So again, I went to public school, and I went to Washburn Rural initially, and it was a little too big for me. I just couldn't behave myself. So it was
Imagine
just
that.
yeah. I was a rowdy young man, and I definitely need some change and to be moving throughout the day like a lot of boys do. So anyway, I ended up transferring to Mission Valley High School my junior year, which is where I met my lovely wife. So I'll call it Providence. But so what I like is that Topeka, you have the schools here, like the larger schools that offer all kinds of activities. And there's some school with larger student bodies, maybe not compared to, some of the huge cities, but 6A, 5A, 6A schools have a lot of offerings. And then on the outskirts, just outside, when I say on the outskirts, we're talking 15, 20 minutes out.
Yeah.
Getting a house in a school district where there's some smaller schools like Silver Lake and Mission Valley, Rossville, just to name a few. There's others as well.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
basically, and those people are still living, for the most part, and working in Topeka or Topeka metro area. So
Yeah.
you've got those schools, you've got the 501 and 437 school districts. Those are the name of the school districts. Washburn Rural, it's amazing how much that's grown over the years. Same thing with Seton School District, Shawnee Heights, and Highland Park. There's some great offerings, but with the private schools, like I said, I couldn't begin to afford what the quality of education that we're getting right now. Ours is a classical Christian school that our kids go to, and we love the quality of education. We love the size because they get to do more things, extracurricular things that might be a little bit harder to do if you're in a larger school. So, I mean, you really have your pick in many ways.
Yeah.
So, so I'm just thrilled with that. Like I said, I love living in Phoenix, but looking at some similar-ish schools there, our tuition would be at least 2.5 times what it is here. So,
Well, if size is the reason for extracurricular in that case, my school has more extracurricular activities than you could ever imagine because we have a classroom of 2. So you were saying something.
I was getting ready to say, though, even though you guys homeschool, which is fantastic, there's a lot of homeschooling.
Oh yeah,
A lot.
I'm not quite sure what they're called, but like where they get together and they'll do an art
Groups
class
and
together.
co-ops.
Co-op is what I was trying to say.
Co-ops, yeah.
So they'll have one person that comes and teaches an art class, and so you can have your kids go to that.
My daughter's currently doing basketball at Mission Hills Church with Upwards. There we go. It's an Upwards.
yeah.
that's a great organization.
It is, yeah. They do a
Really?
great job. So she had her first game last Saturday. Next game is this Saturday, and she's having a blast with that. And we found out through friends who actually visited her game that there's a group here in town that has year-round. It's much more organized, much bigger, but for homeschoolers, and they do like tennis and golf and basketball and soccer.
Yeah.
They have sports through every season.
Yeah.
So we're going to look into that and get her signed up because then she gets to connect with that many more kids and participate.
And there's even, I don't know if she likes to sing, but there's even like a homeschool like choir.
Yeah.
I'll try to
matter of
hook you
fact,
up with that too,
Our friend who told us about it, I think she's putting her kids through that, I think. Can't remember.
Well, I give you some grief about homeschooling, but actually, Christina and I were really considering homeschooling as well. My wife works with me in the business, and we kind of did a plus minus on that, and then checked out a couple of private schools because our intention was to homeschool before that. So the point is you have a lot of great choices, and the homeschooling co-ops here, the opportunities they have, they're fantastic.
It's pretty amazing.
Some of the best athletes I know are homeschoolers because not only do they they get done with their schoolwork pretty quickly, and some of them are traveling with club ball. The families are able to do that, and I think that's great. If that's not our bag, we're not going to do a whole lot of traveling, especially since I work on the evenings and weekends more.
And I think the stereotype is we're very unsocialized, and because I've grown up in homeschool groups, that is very true for some, but not the majority. Majority of homeschoolers I grew up with are either business owners now or doing big things. They have good families. They have a great atmosphere. I'm a friend group. I mean, it's not for everybody, 100%. Like how I personally do not have the ability to school my kids.
Nope.
And I know that for a fact, and that's perfectly fine. My wife has the grace, the patience, and the ability to repeat something 10,000 times. I don't. So it's not for everybody. But for those who choose it, I can't think of anybody in my life who chose homeschooling, stuck with it for more than a year, and regretted it ever.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. And
Same.
kids who actually stuck with it all the way through. I mean, during that time, I know some homeschool kids, they feel like, well, I don't get to go be with my friends every day as I see them all go off on the bus. Later in life, every single one of them are appreciative of it.
There's always an opportunity cost with every one of these options. There's
Yep.
things that you give
Yeah.
up and things that
Exactly.
you gain. And
Absolutely.
I'm going to tell you, whether it's public, private, or homeschool, the child's going to go the way that they need to go.
Yeah.
And, so.
And on that final note, just a question, doesn't have to be anything big, but quality, I think, is something some people have in their minds. Like you mentioned Scottsdale, not being able to afford private school down there, for instance,
Yeah.
just because of how expensive things are comparatively. If you put them in private school down there, do you think they would have robustly a higher quality of private school than they would here?
Like educationally, or
Yeah.
okay. Well, our students that you come out of our private school, when I see them later and they're in college, they typically tell me that college is easy.
They're excelling.
Well, no, I mean, not only are they excelling, but they're saying they're either like excelling top of their class, or that they're just able to handle college and work and everything so much easier because they're already challenged enough, was academically robust enough. They learned a lot of this stuff. So the first 2 years of college is kind of almost a repeat from what I hear from them. So, I mean, that's great. It can be a little stressful because it is rigorous, especially 7th and 8th grade. Seems like kids are getting the swing of things, and that's a little bit more difficult. And then 9th through 12th, they're doing well.
So it's fair to say that affordability here does not equal less of a quality education.
No, it doesn't, because I mean, it's
Not at all.
yeah. I'm trying to find the words to express that, but really it just boils down to those things are more expensive because the real estate's more expensive there, and everything else is more expensive in those places. Here, things are more economical as a whole, so the quality of education is not affected by that. In fact, I've always found it an interesting thing where people think to have a better quality education, you have to throw more money at the school system. And you look at some of the places that don't spend as much in some other parts of the world, and they have incredible results. So
This might be a little controversial, but I think our own governmental system over the last 15 years has proven throwing more dollars at it does not fix the problem.
yeah, I mean, it can help in some aspects, but I mean, it's how it's used and whatnot. So, and a lot of that comes down to not just the nation, but the individual area.
Yeah.
And and hey, people have to be involved with their kids' education as well. You
Yes.
can't just outsource it completely.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And the shift off of that, we've talked about affordability, which really equals quality of life. We talked about education. I want to hit safety on the head because if you look online, Topeka does not actually sound like a very safe place. However, all three of us have lived here for, how long have you lived here, Becky?
2002.
2002.
Over 20 years, 22 years.
So collectively,
23
between the times you left here and collectively, how long have you lived in Topeka?
Longer than 23
Let me
years.
see here. So I'll just tell you how long I haven't lived in Topeka. I'm 51, and I was gone for 4 years for college, another 5. I've only been gone for like 8 years out of that whole time. So,
Oh, lovely.
Yeah,
Okay.
so there we go.
So over
What
40.
about you? You've been here.
I've been here for, let's see, I'm coming up on my 13th anniversary, so I've been here 14 years now.
Okay.
So I wanted to come from it from our personal experience, having lived here long enough. I'm not saying we're just new to the city or anything, but as far as community and safety, what are your thoughts on it?
I mean, I'm from Kansas City, and I've mentioned this in some of my other videos. Kansas City is also a safe place, but I was
love Kansas City,
so
yeah.
desensitized to crime. You know, hearing about it on the news, like you had multiple murders overnight that they would report on. And I remember the first time somebody was killed in Topeka, and I lived here like 6 months, and people were like freaking out. And I'm like, I don't understand. I mean, not that it didn't matter. Of course it mattered, but I was so desensitized to it. I mean, I've been here longer now, so if there is a murder or if there is a crime, it's shocking almost.
they're not typically random.
I feel. Yeah,
It's not typically
exactly.
random. It's
Yeah,
usually
I
someone-
feel very safe in Topeka. I actually managed retail stores for 15 years, and knock on wood, I was never robbed.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that other places are not. Obviously, there's crime anywhere you go, but I always felt safe when I was working. I always feel safe now. And I feel like there's, what? I do.
You do, yeah.
I
so
just love Topeka.
I'm
I
laughing
mean,
'cause
I'm like the weird one.
You feel so close. You and my wife are almost like a little clueless when it comes to this. You're walking around like Lego movie, everything is awesome. And whereas like, I always, not because of Topeka, it wouldn't matter if I was living in Vatican City, the most secure place, I would still, my head's on a swivel, I'm looking up. You know,
I'm not saying my head's not on a swivel.
I tell
I'm
my
just
wife
saying,
constantly.
like,
I'm saying your head's not, because I've seen you.
I tell my wife constantly, my role is safety and logistics.
Yeah.
So she gets to go, we'll go everywhere, we'll do everything, but my brain's constantly on safety and logistics. So I understand.
But you'd be there you'd be that way everywhere, right?
Yes.
Yeah, me too. It doesn't matter.
I don't care if
But
it's
see, like, I disagree with you. Maybe now it's a little different, but when I was in retail, absolutely not. Like, we trained on safety. You're looking out for certain things. Like, I'm not saying I never had times in the whole 15 years that I didn't think, oh my gosh, is something going to happen?
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, compared to when I lived in Kansas City, it's a very different feel here. And I do know a lot of cops that live in town. I know their enrollment in their
There's some great cops here.
What's their, how do you become a cop? The boot camp or?
I always want to call it boot camp. It's not
not
boot
boot
Police
camp.
Academy?
Police Academy.
There we go.
I know,
Not-
like, the enrollment in that is
Not
up.
the
So
movie,
like,
but
yeah, not the movie. So I don't know. I guess just because I'm a little closer to it too, because I know people. I know there's good people out there. Again, there's bad apples everywhere you go, but my personal perspective is
we feel safe here too.
yeah,
We
I
do.
don't have any issues.
I came from a town in Pennsylvania that I believe had a population of like less than 1,000. And then my family moved to Idaho, and we had a population of like 5 neighbors and 1,000,000 acres, literally. So
you were not
very, very
safe.
small town boy growing up on both sides of the country. So I moved here.
So
This is-
homeschooling wasn't a choice. It was just like a
yeah, I just perpetuated a stereotype there. But I moved here, and this is the biggest city I've ever lived. I call it a city. Now I've lived here for 15 years, 14 years, whatever. This is not a city. It's just a big town. It's the biggest small town I've ever lived in.
Were you living on a beet farm in Pennsylvania?
You're so hilarious. No, I was not living on a beet farm. However, we did serve with a produce business the Amish community quite a bit.
Yes.
That was fun.
I'm getting some Dwight Schrute vibes right now.
So moving here, initially moving here, that was my thought, is I'm moving into a city. What is it going to be like safety-wise, especially if I'm living in town? So I should find a place outside of town. So I found
Topeka,
apartments.
the big city.
Then I rented a house, and we've lived in our house now for like 10
Yeah.
years. This is small town feel with enough amenities, enough city, enough community where you feel like you're in legitimately a city. But it just
You are.
safety-wise, it doesn't feel like that, because I've visited just about every large city in the country. Especially when I was trucking, I've been everywhere. Topeka just feels like a small town, and I've not lived. We had across from us, we had a renter at one point who was doing some stuff. He moved in from out of state, and he got removed by the police. Never saw him again. And we've obviously witnessed some stuff, but I've never once felt like my family is in danger.
And see, that's why I love Topeka. People think I'm so crazy because I just like walk around, everything is awesome. But but I grew up in Kansas City where it would take you, 40 minutes to get to the mall.
Oh, yeah.
Not because it was so far away, but because you're dealing with traffic and all of that. And then you come here and it's like 2 minutes to the mall. And we're still only really an hour away from Kansas City, depending on which route you take.
Totally.
And so that's one of the reasons I love, for the opposite reason, it feels like a small, big town to me versus
Which
a
I don't
big,
want to underplay
small
it.
town.
We have plenty of crime, and I think you said it best before, in that it's in a lot of ways isolated.
It's pretty isolated.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time because you said I've been everywhere, man, and now I've got
Now
Johnny
you're singing
Cash
that
right
song.
there. So I got everything is awesome, and I've been everywhere, man, competing in my head right now. ADD's kicking in hard.
And we've lived in different parts of towns. Have you always been in that house that you're in?
No,
Okay.
no, because I came here to go to Washburn. So I lived on
Oh, okay.
campus. I lived in an apartment. I lived over by Lake Shunga,
Yeah.
Creek, off of 25th. I've lived over on the southeast side, southeast
okay.
Indiana,
I didn't know that.
for like 2 years,
Mhm.
and I've loved that little area. Like,
So
where
you were
we
not isolated to one section of town that you've always
No.
lived. You got to experience it all.
No.
How about you, Patrick?
Well, you're from Kansas City, so that's, I can understand how that would happen because the Topekans tend to like live in one area of town and
Yeah.
Yeah.
like kind of stay there. And I've observed that in other towns as well, but it's funny because it's not a big city, but people still kind of like, well, this is my part of town, so I kind of tend to stay here.
Well, it's so darn
Yeah.
convenient. You can choose to do that here because
Yeah.
literally, like we've said 1,000 times before, no matter where you're at, you're 15 minutes from everything else. You can stay isolated to a part of town and still commute to work, go to groceries, go to events, go to church, and everything is 15 minutes away.
And I'm outside of town a little bit, and it still takes me 15 or 20 to get to anywhere.
Yeah.
So from the city, from inside the city, it's literally 15 or minutes less. I have, when I was a kid, before my parents moved out past Auburn in the country, you know, we lived in Highland Park School District, southeast for a little bit, and then we lived in Topeka West and Topeka High School District as well. And then we also, I went to Washington Rural because that's when we moved out to the country, and ended up going to Mission Valley High School. But regardless of that, so I've lived a few places. We tend to, most of what we do is Southwest. That's where our kids go to school, and that's where our office is. But I sell real estate all over the city, obviously in the county, and even some in Kansas City and Lawrence and Manhattan every now and then. But the point is that, you know, you can find your vibe. There's different parts of town that you might appreciate for whatever reason. In fact, when you move here from somewhere else, you don't already have all that stuff built in. Like, well, I'm just used to this. So
Yeah.
you got some great options. In fact, like Southeast Topeka, being so close to Lawrence and Kansas City, I mean,
Or Lake Shawnee.
or Lake Shawnee is a gem. It's a treasure.
It is.
I was going to
It
say,
really
when
is.
we lived off of Southeast Indiana, I missed that vibe where we were. It was a cul-de-sac little neighborhood. I mean, there were like 5 streets, but it was
What 100 block is this?
38th. So we
Okay,
were
'cause I'm
very
like, where was
close.
there a cul-de-sac on Indiana?
Yeah, I mean,
Out
and it's
38th, gotcha.
yeah. So it's basically off of 37th, but you're super close to like the new Walmart that they built on California. You're super close to Lake Shawnee. Like I used to go and walk Lake Shawnee because it was
Lake
so
Shawnee's awesome.
close. I mean, it was way close. I miss that side of town. I mean, you find your niche on that side of town. Then I have friends that live up north, and they just it's like its own little community up
I
there.
think
They
up
have
north is
all
really
their
pretty.
things.
Yeah.
Then you have your things out southwest. So it's really cool. Like yeah, anywhere you go. But I do miss the southeast side. Like it was.
But
was a whole
overall,
vibe.
with 20 or so years of experience, 40 or so years of experience, and 13 or 14 years of experience, if you go, which we all have, read statistics and online posts about Topeka, it's not necessarily what you've experienced yourself.
Well, those things about statistics, it's like, how do they divide up the areas? Because I've seen we lived in a community by like Collins Park or Westboro area, and if you looked at that, the crime stats might look a little bit higher because of the zone that they're calling it, you know,
Yeah.
like how they, and that neighborhood was very safe. We've never had any issues. Like I said, I'm just security conscious by nature. It's just my role, especially as when I got married, I was a lot more security conscious, and then when we had kids, I was even more so. And it wouldn't matter where we are, but I've never really had any significant issue here. I'm trying to think of anything I had. When we lived in College Hill, I had a BMW, an older BMW, and I had my window broken twice. And that was 20 some years ago. Other than that, I think someone stole a lawn chair one time. That's about the extent of what we've experienced with crime. So that's what I didn't want to state it just like that. Anything can happen to anyone anytime, but usually it's who you're affiliated with, and that kind of stuff is not, it's usually arm's length, let's just put it that way.
Yeah. So again, I don't want to paint Topeka in a absolute perfect nothing ever happens light, but overall moving here, I feel very safe with my wife and children here, and raising a family and being part of this community.
I agree.
Which leads us to our last one, since we're talking about doing things with families.
My
You've
favorite
mentioned
part.
before many a times that Topeka does not necessarily have a nightlife, which it doesn't. It seems like 9, 10 o'clock, everybody's in bed and we're waiting for the next day.
That's me.
But they make up for that with more family activities and areas and things to do. So family-friendly activities and amenities. I want to get you guys' perspective on what you like to do with your families here in Topeka, why you like it. Start with Becky.
Well, to start off, my church is huge. I feel like we get a lot of things to do for the kids through our church. Secondly, the parks. So many different options for parks. They just built a brand new one off of Urish Road that my kids absolutely love.
Awesome.
They're so sad that it's so cold because we haven't gone in a while, but I actually passed that picking them up and taking them
Oh,
home
okay.
from school. So to get the wiggles out, we'll stop by that park. So I love the parks. The Discovery Center. There's like a multi-million-dollar expansion going on at the Discovery Center, which is a kids museum, and they have a couple times a year different themed. Now, again, I know your kids
you say
are
museum. It's like very interactive.
well. It's a children's museum,
Yeah,
interactive
so,
children's museum. So I know one time we went and they had a Curious George exhibit, and so you got to do all the different things with Curious George, and they have, experiments you can do, and like just that sort of stuff. But they are doing a massive expansion there. Gage Park is phenomenal. The train, the zoo is awesome. You guys are amazing and always get us a zoo pass. And so we just pop in. I mean, it's the perfect little size, so you can go and
Zoo lights are awesome.
yeah, zoo lights are awesome. And then also they have just like a lot of random things you wouldn't think about. Like they have a place called Bonkers that we actually just paid for a year pass. It was like $40 a kid for the year. But then at any time,
jungle gym is so
it's
awesome.
a huge
My
jungle.
kids love
Yes,
it.
it's a huge jungle gym and slides and swings and all that stuff. But it's indoors. So with this crazy cold snap we had, we would take them to Bonkers once a day, and they're just getting all their wiggles out and loving that. And actually over the summer, this is going to sound even crazier, Chuck E. Cheese. We paid, I think it was like $30.
You lost me there.
It was $30
The
for,
kids casino, Chuck E. Cheese.
it was $30 for unlimited access
That's actually
for
cool.
3 months, for the entire summer. So
Wow.
again, when it's hot,
So you just drop them
middle
off
of
there
the
in the morning,
day,
pick them up at the end?
no. But my husband would take them there, and they would get to play games and whatever, and then they would get to leave, but it was air conditioned, and so it was just kind of, there's just random options. And then, I could go on forever. There's lots. And again, my kids are 5 and 7, so that's a very specific niche
yeah.
that doesn't quite, your
wasn't
kids are
that-
not going to want to go to
It
Bonkers.
feels like yesterday that was the case, but now I'm like, sometimes I even forget. It's like, well, let's do that. Oh, I can't do this. A 16 and a 13-year-old don't want to go do that. Discovery Center, as beautiful as it was, it's kind of gone for us now.
Yeah, different stage of
but
life.
just right down the street from that is the Gage Park, was it called Blaisdell Aquatic Center?
Yeah,
Yeah, at Gage Park. The pool.
the pool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I had to say the pool, so Jacob's like, he's over here thinking. Blaisdell Aquatic Center. I'm trying to use specific what it's called, so if you look it up online, you can see it.
Yeah.
And out north, they have that
They have a
aquatic center
awesome.
too, and one over off of 21st and South. So every part of town has a really nice aquatic center. In fact, it's amazing how many pools there are. We've rented one. The one in Oakland for my my kid's birthday party was great.
Yeah.
It was so cheap to rent too, and that's the thing. It's like that's something we didn't talk about, like on affordability. I
Yeah.
know I'm regressing here a little bit, but we throw epic birthday parties for our kids because the stuff that's available,
Yeah,
I mean,
is
and
so
for
affordable.
The price is like, we rent out a pool. One time we did rented out axe throwing.
Yep. Which I imagine if you take 10 or 15 kids to some other place, and even Kansas City, price tag goes way up.
I took 15 boys to the T-Box downtown. We started that, so we're all having a good time, with this golf simulator. So we're out of Chuck E. Cheese, but now we're in the pools and
Well, I'm
golf
sad.
simulators. So
James's birthday is April 2nd, and you know where he wants to have his birthday? At school. I'm like, no, buddy, like that, you'll have one at school.
So he's been
So-
institutionalized. All right.
Well, so Alex is thinking about he can actually rent the gym at his school
that's cool.
and do like PE games.
Now that's a jazz.
So I think we might end up doing that, but
And for our family, I mean, we like to be out and about as much as we can. So where we live, when I'm out and away and they don't have a vehicle, they will just walk a couple blocks and set up on, I believe, 9th Street. They have the pickleball courts. So they go play pickleball, and they have friends meet them, and they just go play. And there's a whole little jungle gym area and play area for the kids. So Becca can play pickleball. Emily's old enough now; she joins in. They have a friend.
What is the deal with pickleball?
I know.
I
it
don't
is,
know.
like,
Don't ask
all
because
the
I still
rage
haven't
right
figured
now.
it
It is
out.
such
But
a nice
besides,
court.
she's
the
like,
thing
I
is,
know.
though, there's so many options. Like you said, Bonkers. I like taking my kids there when it's slow business because then I will just go run through it with them and chase them around. We absolutely love it. It's a blast. Like if Emily wants to pick up like tennis or golf or something like that through this homeschool co-op, I'm probably just going to go get our entire family a Great Life membership for like $60 or $70 a month, and she'll have access to 8 or 10 golf courses and all the
It's massive.
tennis courts and everything else.
And
So
for how much again?
it's like $60 or $70 a month.
Yeah, which is amazing because you can go to
Yeah.
several golf courses for that, and that's really amazing.
Yeah.
Our golf season is not as long here, like say golf season. But playing golf here, you can't do it as long as you can in the South. But it is very nice in that South and Southwest, of course. The other thing is, you mentioned tennis.
Mm-hmm.
We have an amazing tennis park at Crossover.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is really premier.
What may seem a little more niche to you guys is we've got actually some really great disc golf fields. And then we are only an hour from Emporia, which I guess is one of the disc golf like hubs of the nation.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious to me.
So many guys here play disc golf. I had a friend bring me into it. It's just amazing how big that community actually is here. It's huge. So I mean, we have options beyond options for sports, for entertainment, for family activities. Like we like to go on walks, so we go explore in one of our many random parks.
Like I Live Commons is amazing.
Is that the one up north on 24?
Yeah.
That's what I was just going to mention.
I Live Commons.
Oh yeah,
It's gorgeous. We had friends recommend it last August or September, so we went on a family walk with them. It is one of the coolest places to walk ever.
It's pretty amazing.
Oh my gosh, it's pretty.
I was cracking up about we're talking about pickleball and then disc golf. It's like we're doing an episode of Obscure Sports Weekly on ESPN The O Show.
I think pickleball is one of the fastest growing sports in the country. What?
Because I want to say at Gage Park, there's this really great niche for LARPing, but
yeah, LARPing. Oh yes, a live action role play, Jacob.
I'm feeling homeschool.
But I do think there is a niche for that in Topeka.
I wouldn't know, so I'm glad you have information because I don't know because I'm not part of that.
Someday you'll confess that you're into it.
Either way, guys, this was a really good conversation. I think we hit 5 topics pretty thoroughly. I'm really glad I could get both of your opinions on it.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here, and looking forward to the next one.
Yes. See you next time.